to your other point, it's worth repeating that when you're looking at, say, metabolic syndrome, you've got five things that, 5 symptoms of metabolic syndrome. If you have 3 of them, you have metabolic syndrome. If you have one of those 5 things that you can have is obesity. So you cannot be obese and still have metabolic syndrome
100%.
because there's certain people, I don't know what the numbers are, maybe 20% of the people that they just don't put on weight. They can eat whatever they want. They don't put on weight, and they can still have metabolic syndrome. They can still have the symptoms of hyperinsulinemia. They just don't put on the weight.
I actually don't know what the percentage is, but it's at least that, because I always say this, right? We have 2 extremes and we have the hybrids, the in-betweens. I've got the very thin but highly diabetic, and like me. Like, I was someone who was very thin, but the problem with it, and it's exactly that, it's genetic. Genetically, I don't put on subcutaneous fat, or at least not until I'm way down the spectrum, because I did start to gain weight, but the majority of that weight goes straight into my organs, so visceral fat, and I start to get sick right away. So I did develop diabetes, hypertension, cancer, as I said, and there's many cancers that are related to metabolic syndrome, and some mood disorders and things that are probably related. So right away, even though I was thin, and I work with a lot of these people, I work with very thin, highly diabetic individuals because they don't genetically put on weight. Then I work with morbidly obese individuals, or obese. Maybe morbid obesity is when they already have certain symptoms. But just before they become morbidly obese, they don't have hypertension, they don't have diabetes, but they're extremely overweight. And that's a protective mechanism, I think. It's genetic. Their insulin and their fat, sort of that organ, is driving all of their fat into their subcutaneous fat. It's protecting their organs, at least at first, right? Eventually, as I say, the dam breaks. And once the dam breaks for the thin or for the obese individuals, you kind of develop all of the metabolic syndrome expressions.
Yeah, that was my case. I was getting fatter and fatter and fatter and fatter. And every time I go to the doctor, he'd say something like, well, everything's okay. Your blood pressure is okay. Everything's all right. But he would say, how long do you think that's going to last? I was like, I don't know. It's lasting good so far. And then one day my health fell off a cliff. My blood pressure got, shot through the roof, and I had all of these other issues that were going on. And it was just, it was a dam broke. It was not a gradual slide into poor health. It was, it was everything all at once. And it took some work to fix a lot of that. But so I can personally attest to that. So let's